इह चेदवेदीदथ सत्यमस्ति न चेदिहा वेदीन्महति विनष्टिः भूतेषु भूतेषु विचित्य धीराः प्रेत्यास्माल्लोकादमृता भवन्ति.
If that is known here, then is truth established. If not known here, it is the greatest loss. Having reflected through every element, the wise risen from this world become immortal. So 2 aspects to the mantra, and we'll cover both of them. So essentially in this mantra, the great master of the Kenopanis is indicating here the purpose of our sojourn on this earth. So those of you who attended Monday night's class, it's amazing the synchronicity that exists. But you will appreciate that there is one mission for all of us. Everyone has the same mission. Now, you may argue that your mission is different from the person next to you, at least in the Zoom room. It may even be different from the person in your actual living room. But to be honest, is not. Sure, you may have various projects that you're working on. You may have varying levels of intellect. There's marked differences. In fact, each and every individual is different. We're not talking about a position of spiritual evolution. What we're talking about is the pursuit of a goal, a final goal in this case. Because the final goal, the final mission of everybody's is the same. And that is to attain a state of enlightenment. Now, sure, because you cannot conceive of the state of enlightenment, perhaps you can. You may, or it may not be an appealing ideal to you, and that's fair enough. It takes a highly evolved spiritual person to conceive of realizing the self. Of course, we talk about it and it's indicated in the scriptures. But when we come down to practical application, it's not necessarily in everyone's sort of radar, as it were. Nonetheless, this is everyone's mission. How we say that is everybody is looking for the same thing. And that is what we would call as peace and happiness. But not just peace and happiness. No. We don't want just peace and happiness. We think we want peace and happiness. That's what most people believe that they want. But in actual fact, it's a more permanent state of peace and happiness. Because we've all experienced peace and happiness, yet we continue to pursue it because it doesn't last. So we want that permanent state of peace and happiness. Absolute fulfillment. Absolute peace. Absolute bliss. Absolute satisfaction. The other name for that is self-realization or enlightenment. So there's not one person that would say, no, I don't want that. If they say, no, I want absolute sorrow, usually depressed or something like that. Very seldom will you find people that don't want absolute anything, even if it's absolute wealth. You won't meet anyone that will pass up that opportunity. Now, what is absolute wealth? Self-realization. Absolute anything is self-realization. So essentially what the verse is saying is that is your purpose in life. Self-realization. What is self-realization? Well, if we break it down technically, and as you know, that's what we like to do in these classes, not because we're technically minded, because we want to get a fundamental understanding of things. We want to get a grasp on it. And to do that, you have to be able to break it down into pieces. You have to break it down into pieces and then build your own understanding from those pieces, from those fundamental building blocks. So we say self-realization is the same as saying desirelessness or vasanalessness. So in fact, your mission in life is to eradicate the vasanas or the desires. Because it is the vasanas and the desires that generate all our sorrows, all our woes, all our agitations in life. This is a fact. No. You may say, yeah, okay, bad desires, okay. What about good desires? See, even a good desire, if you don't fulfill a noble desire, say you're working towards something that's noble, you got a cause, you got a charity or something you want to fulfill, and you don't meet that end, you don't achieve your target, there's a sense of dejection. You may blame somebody, you may blame yourself. These are all symptoms or signs of agitation. Where did the agitation come from? Noble desire. So no matter what the desire, noble, ignoble, selfish, unselfish, all desires ultimately are that which prevent this state of absolute peace and happiness from materializing. So again, comes back to that. What is your mission in life? Your mission in life is to gain that absolute state of peace and happiness, bliss. We can't deny that. Now, it's very interesting what they say in the verse is, I'll just bring it up for you guys. So he says, if that is known here, then is truth established. So if you recognize and realize the self, then you are established in that. You become that self, as it were. And this is your life's mission. Then he goes on to say, and this is still the first part of the mantra I'm explaining, if not known here, the word he uses, the greatest loss. Mahiti vinashti. Mahiti vinashti. The greatest loss. You see, loss is one thing. Oh, it's a shame. It's a loss. No, it's a great loss. That's something else. A little bit more serious. What the Mahiti vinashti actually means is the greatest of greatest losses. Imagine the greatest loss that you can conceive. Everyone's greatest loss will, of course, look a little different. What is that greatest loss? You don't have to tell us, but conceptualize that in your mind. Right. Not knowing that referring to the Brahman, not knowing that here means this lifetime is the greatest of greatest losses. See, in a way they quantify it. Well, we are quantifying it. Otherwise you say greatest of greatest, oh, what is the greatest of greatest loss? So what? And you just brush it off. So think about it this way, because this will actually drive you. This will inspire you. This will get you to sit up and realize the seriousness of the situation. The greatest loss you can conceive. Not achieving Brahman in this lifetime is the greatest of greatest. Greater than that greatest loss that you can conceive. I don't know how much greater it can be. Mahati vinashti, they say. The greatest loss. You see, what you have to appreciate is, out of all the creatures on the planet, no, we're not taking into account bacteria and all of that, because that's going into the trillions of trillions and trillions. Even creatures, right? If we look at creatures on the planet, billions, there's literally billions of creatures, right? Human beings are only 8 billion. Actually, a very small amount compared to the rest of the creatures on the planet. And I'm talking birds and insects and all of that. Vast number. So the fact that you are born as a human being, it's amazing. It's amazing. You have these faculties available to you. You can think, you can feel, you can act autonomously of your own accord. There's so many privileges we have because we are human. So that's one thing. To be born as a human is rare. You take only 8 million out of a billion, out of however many billion creatures. It's a small percent to be born as a human. Very rare. So everything aside, that in itself is a rare opportunity. And now you take that one step further. Out of the 8 billion people in the planet, on this earth, how many people have access to profound knowledge? How many people have access to a teacher? How many people, even being able to read is a privilege. So again, the number goes down smaller. See, if you look at the entire population of the world, vast majority they're not interested in spiritual pursuit. They are, vast majority, I'm talking 90% plus, motivated by acquisition and enjoyment. Most people in the world you speak to, they only talk about acquisition and enjoyment. Where's the next holiday? What's the next car? How long can that go on? It's actually boring. It's very boring. And to tell you the honest truth, I think I have more students than friends. Because friends are boring, you know. They're lost in this mundane world. At least here, some sense we can chat amongst us. When you guys do open your mouth. I don't know how much sense I talk. But anyway, most people are lost in this acquisition and enjoyment. You can't pluck them out. Right. Majority. So now we've got within humans, we've got this very small percentage of people that are actually interested in spiritual pursuit, right? Okay, yeah, that's wow, you know, I'm not saying just Vedanta, but they're interested in self-development, spiritual pursuit, whatever you want to call it. Now, out of those people, how many are sattvic? And that's who the guru is addressing, is the sattvic people. They're all sattvic people. That much I know. So how many of the 8 billion human beings are sattvic? Now we start getting into whatever you want to call, like thousands, hundreds maybe, with the teacher, with the right knowledge. It really puts one right on that pinnacle. If you see it as a pyramid, you're right on the pinnacle. Not to realize, with all that going for you, not to realize, greatest of greatest losses, he says. The greatest of greatest losses. Now, you must understand, they're not saying this to dissuade you. They're actually saying this to inspire you. So It is designed for the introverted people. You see, extroverted means you're interested in the world. Your primary point of focus is the world. How can I better improve my position, status in the world? Very few people are digging deep into their inner personality. The introverts, we call. Eliminating the desires, getting closer to that self. So what they say is that, okay, if you achieve that, fantastic. That's amazing. You've done, then that puts you in the 0.001. If you realize the self, then that's amazing. But even if you're in that small pinnacle, that small percentage, and you let it go, you don't do everything in your power to achieve that. You let it go. He calls it as a spiritual suicide. This is like spiritual suicide. See, what we don't recognize is the opportunity that is presented to us. We, in a sense, take it for granted. Yeah. Great knowledge. Good teacher, wrote books, very good. Take it for granted. So close, so close. You just got to put in that last effort to get there. So then he goes on to say, and this is the second part of the mantra, having reflected through every element, the wise, risen from this world, become immortal. So again, what he's referring to is this process, in a way, which he made reference to in the previous mantra. Remember last time we discussed this idea of open eye meditation, and that is being able to aware the consciousness in every action, perception, emotion, and thought. So while engaging in your actions, activities, your emotions and perceptions, it's awareing that the consciousness backs that. Having that awareness, that open eye meditation, as it were. So when you're able to do this, this is what he calls as the practice, upasana. It's a practice. One of the ways in which we had demonstrated this, and it's a technique that you can employ, I would recommend it, is this synchronization. Try to synchronize your daily activities with the thought of the reality. So whatever it be, whether it's brushing the teeth, walking up the stairs, I am Atman Brahman. Just bringing your awareness, bringing your thought back to that which enables me, Brahman. See, it shouldn't become a mechanical repetition. Very easy to sit there and go, I am Brahman, I am Brahman, I am Brahman. Any idiot can do that. But it's having a genuine sense, backed by knowledge, obviously. That's the, otherwise any person in the studio, just say, I am Brahman, you'll get there. What we're saying is backed by knowledge. Now you've had the full 2 parts of Kenopanis exposed to these highest thoughts. So you have an awareness, you have the knowledge that is backing it. This is important, because when you say I am Atman Brahman, there's a recognition of, yes, although I'm performing this particular action, there is something behind it, something enlivening it that makes it so. So it's not just I am Atman Brahman, I am Atman Brahman, mechanically repeating it. That's not what we're suggesting in synchronization. It's actually synchronizing our thoughts. So again, it comes back to, where are your thoughts? We gave last week that thumb example. You put your thumb up. If you look at your thumb, the background is out of focus. If you look at the background, the thumb is out of focus. I can't have both. So you're either focusing on that which enables me to perceive, act, feel, and think, or you get lost in the perceptions, the actions, the emotions, and the thoughts. And the world is a vampire. It has this tendency to suck you in. So tantalizing, so appealing to the senses. This is the world. We can't change that. What we can change is how we relate to the world. Of course, we advocate the development of the intellect to exercise a certain amount of self-control, regulation, moderation in our contact with the world, where we can still contact, no problem. But the world has this tendency to pull us in, to draw us in, like a black hole. Vortex. So it's important that we are able to recognize that. Yeah, recognize that there is this pull from the world. Of course, there's this push of our own desires, but the world is pulling us towards it too. That we need to examine and address too. See, before we can even launch on a spiritual course, there's some degree of restraint that we need to establish with regards contacting the world. Yeah, I like spirituality, but, being down at the pub is also very, very nice. A lot of fun. Spirituality, not so fun, but it's okay. But that's really fun. Yeah, you end up being down there at the pub every day. No, nothing wrong with that, but kind of the best of both worlds. You can try, you'll just confuse yourself, that's all. It's like trying to focus on two things at once. Eventually get dizzy, So here you are, there's an opportunity presenting itself to focus on the self, to move closer to that state. Take it. Take it. So again, is the Guru's reassurance here. Basically reassuring us and say, you practice this technique. You aware that consciousness through every perception, action, emotion, and thought. You become immortal. What more assurance could you need? The Guru himself is saying, you become immortal. You do that, you become immortal. It's a matter of time. You get established in Brahman, as it were. And again, these two references are given in the text, where this is almost verbatim repeated in two passages in the Bible. And that's in St. Matthew's 10, verse 39, and St. Luke 9:24. So in St. Matthew's, it says, he that findeth his life shall lose it, and he that loseth his life for my sake shall find it. In St. Luke, a similar thing. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, but whosoever will lose his life for my sake, the same shall save it. Old English, it may be confusing, but it's not very confusing. It's quite straightforward, in fact. He that findeth his life shall lose it. Lose what? Anybody? If you find your life, you lose it.
In the world. Lose the world.
Actually, just the opposite. So, he says, he that findeth his life, right? What's his life? Name, fame, power, position, status, money, the world. You're drawn to the world. You find your life. I'm very settled. Good house, good job, good family. Good Vedanta classes. You found your life. You've lost it. You've lost the self. And he that loseth his life, in other words, he that gives up the world. Don't worry, we're not asking you to give up anything. But he that gives up the world, he that loses his life for my sake, not Christ's sake, for the sake of the self, shall find it, shall find that truth, shall find that reality, shall find the Brahman. So again, what is the choice? The greatest achievement that you could aim for, the completion of life's mission, or the greatest of great losses. The choice is yours. You find your life, you lose the self, you go and get the self. That's the achievement. That's the greatest achievement. In St. Luke, for whosoever will save his life shall lose it. Save his life, the same thing. You're hanging on to those perceptions, those actions, emotions, and thoughts. You're hanging on to that ego. You're entrapped. You shall lose the self. But whosoever will lose his life for my sake, again, the same thing he's repeating. Lose his life means lose the world. Stop identifying with this limitation that you're in for my sake, for the sake of the self. This is the negation and assertion part that we talk about. Remember, we covered in the Vedanta treatise, negation and assertion. This is the road to immortality. You negate everything that is not self. In other words, the world. Nati, not this, not this. And you assert the reality, the truth. Through the practice of synchronization, through the practice of awareing the consciousness in every action, perception, emotion, and thought. So there is no choice. Well, of course there's a choice. That's the difficulty, or that's the predicament we're in as human beings. We have this choice. Animals don't have to choose. They know exactly what needs to be done, when it needs to be done. They're protected by nature, but no animal can realize itself. That's the advantage. So we pay the cost. We pay the cost. Yes, it's a struggle, having to choose day in and day out what to choose, how to choose, when to choose, all of that. It's a struggle. That's the struggle. But in that ability to choose, we have the choice to return to the source, to get back to our original being. See, we can choose to go up or we can choose to go down. We can choose mind, we can choose intellect. We can choose good, we can choose bad. We can choose evolution, we can choose devolution. Whole life is a series of choices. So, of course, we're endowed with this faculty to choose. That's the intellect. Unfortunately, the intellect is fallow. So, in a sense, you're right. In one sense, you're right. There is no choice because the mind is choosing for us. We just happily go along with that desire that pushes us from pillar to post. This is what's happening. We think we're choosing, but we're just a slave to the mind's demands. No, our freedom of choice. Freedom to go where your desires tell you to go. It's not freedom. Yeah, it's not part-time. Full-time awareness, he said. I think it even refers to it there. Full-time awareness. So again, you lose it, your life. You see, the extroverts are very content with this life. In fact, most people are content, quite happy. No, we are settled, very settled in life. Swamiji often says the people that are most settled are the most unsettled. You see, because it's just a case for complacency. This is exactly what happens. You get nicely settled. Nice home, nice life. You get complacent. Because your focus of attention is on everything external. Yeah, okay, there are going to be some challenges, but we're masters at covering those up. So an introvert will never be satisfied with simply everything that the world can offer. Will never be satisfied. Introvert will always want to get to the bottom of things. Extroverts very satisfied in this life. Very, very satisfied. You see, you even learn some of these principles of Vedanta. You don't have to learn a lot, believe you me. You don't have to develop your intellect a lot to actually be very, very comfortable in life. This is what they warn us in another Upanishads. Those that get lost in this get in greater darkness. Because what happens? You're just cruising. And you get stuck there. Now, I'm not saying don't cruise. Cruise is good. But you must know where you're going. You're not there to put up a camp on the bridge. You're there to cross over. Remember, we talked about it. Gave that analogy, that bridge analogy. Life is a bridge from mortality to immortality, right? That's the opportunity we've got, this rare opportunity to cross from mortality, birth and death, changing phenomenon, to immortality, that changes reality, the self. And what happens somewhere on that bridge where you get stuck? You found your life, as it were. You find your life. Very happy, yeah. A nice place. I found a beautiful place. You must come visit me. Beautiful place. So nice there. So relaxing. So peaceful. Nobody disturbs me. Again, I'm not saying don't find peace and happiness in your life, but as soon as you develop this aspect of complacency, that's it. You found your life and you've lost it. You've lost the self because you're not pursuing it anymore. You see, material, physical, emotional, intellectual well-being should be a platform to launch you towards the self. What often happens is that becomes an end in itself. People take that as the end. Okay, I'm materially well off now. This knowledge has given me emotional stability and I got an intellect to make right choices. And you get stuck there. Found your life. This is how you know. If you're introvert, if you have to ask yourself, Craig, am I introvert or extrovert? This is your answer. The introvert will never be satisfied with this mundane world. Never be. He knows where he has to get to, she has to get to. Very, very clear that this world is a passing phenomenon. A changing, passing, fleeting phenomenon. It is not where you belong. If you see yourself as a tourist here on your way to getting back home, then you've done something with this life, at least. Just a tourist passing by on my way home. But it's too easy to get caught up in the fanfare, the funfair. Too easy. You forget where home is. Everyone okay? Great. Yes, Vasu.
So, Craig, I just want your opinion on this. So, in terms of person who have some difficulty in life or some challenges in the world, because a person who's got a bit of wealth would find it difficult to leave his wealth and move into a life of pedantic knowledge. But people that have some challenges in the world or whatever, do you find that they will be easy to take to this knowledge because they don't have the wealth, and therefore would find some solace in this pursuit of this pedantic way of living?
You know, the interesting thing, Vasu, is you know, because we spend a lot of time, you know, especially when we do big events and we're trying to appeal to people who we think will resonate with the subject, with this knowledge, and we've got our idea in our head who will resonate with it, who we think, and we try and, you know, target those people. Maybe they're into spirituality, maybe they're into this, maybe they're into that. Definitely wouldn't be into that. And then these people turn up, and it's the people almost you least expected. But my point is that it's so hard to predict who will take to the subject. I've known some very wealthy people. In fact, a lot of wealthy people actually take to the subject for the reason that, you see, once you've attained a certain level of comfort, right, and you are thinking higher thoughts, you'll recognize, okay, I've achieved all of this. I've got X amount of wealth, enough to last me. I got the best house, the best car, the best food, the best, and yet I'm sitting here and I'm still stuck with this feeling that there's something missing. They'll pick it up. They'll pick it up. But equally supportive is a person who's constantly faced with the challenges of life, because challenges can do a lot for your growth and development if you treat them in the right way. They can squash you if you don't. But if you treat the challenges in the right way, you can use those challenges to fortify your personality and move in the same direction. So two very different circumstances, but both could have the same outcome. In other words, spiritual pursuit. You could have those two situations again playing out. Person materially well off in that and just gets stuck there, complacent, believes that's it. Gets lost in indulgences, sensual indulgences, traveling everywhere because he's got a weakness for sights. Doesn't pursue anything. Similarly, with a person that meets these challenges, it'd just be like, well, life is just terrible, just full of challenges, one after the next. You know, I can't wait till it's over. You know, how much longer can I endure this? I can't think of anything higher. So there's no like one size fits all. There's no unwritten thing that says, well, if you have a if you're materially well off, then yeah, you're primed for this. Or if you're materially not well off, you're not primed for this. There's no such thing. Everyone is unique. From my experience, I see a lot of materially well off people pursuing it for the reason I gave. But it's not that I don't see people that are not necessarily well off. You see, the thing is, even in terms of subjective well-being and happiness, if you look at the current literature, a certain amount of wealth, right, can give you happiness, right? People will claim a sense of happiness if they are able to meet the basics. That's food on the table, shelter, medical, all of these basics are met, right? You attain a certain level of wealth. And then they did these studies about increasing the wealth, right? And actually, it gets to a point where once you've met the basics of your requirements in terms of wealth, and then you earn a little bit more, and a little bit more, it's not much more you get to where that figure, I can't remember what it was offhand, it wasn't dollars, is like whatever, $100,000 a year or something. Don't quote me on it. Anything above that, anything more than that, didn't give them any greater sense of happiness. In fact, in a lot of cases, decreased their happiness. So even if we look at it from the perspective of subjective well-being, we can see, yes, wealth does play a role up to a point. Can you imagine trying to think of the higher and you haven't eaten for 3 days? Very difficult. Of course, there are rare individuals that pursue a spiritual path and have nothing. And India is full of these examples. But these are spiritual stewards. They're very, very rare. The Ramatirtha, he was a teacher, and he used to send 80% of his salary back to his family, which left him with 1 meal a day. 1 meal a day. And by the sounds of it, it didn't even sound very substantial. That 1 meal sometimes he used to give away. But where's the Ramatirtha and the average person? Ramatirtha is one of the greatest saints that India has ever produced. So that's an exceptional case. So again, it's a spiritual person can pop up anywhere. And what is more important is if they have that mamukshvatva, that burning desire to liberate, or at least to pursue something beyond this world. That's what's more important. If you can establish that, then you're established.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think has to be there for somebody to have this burning desire to liberate.
Okay. So that is part 2. Now, part 3 that we're going to get on to next is basically a narrative. And the scriptures of the world are full of these narratives, Puranas, these stories, long stories. And you're going to see 12 mantras they go through, a long story, which can be conveyed very simply, 1 or 2 verses. Again, remember we talked about the different qualities of students in the beginning. And so now we get into a narrative where, okay, and initially the intention was, to provide the narrative to get people thinking, to draw out the philosophy. And it's very interesting. Now, you don't have to test yourself, but whatever we've discussed up until now is in this narrative. You can do it the other way around. If you understand the narrative and can correlate the narrative to part 1 and 2, then you've understood. If you're going through the narrative, you see some people go through the narrative and they'll get caught up in the story. What a fantastic story. Maybe I'll tell the story to my children tonight to put them to bed. They get caught up in the story. And we're not talking about that. The narrative itself is giving an indication of everything that's been spoken of so far. You draw your conclusions. If you can draw your conclusions, then you've done well to understand up until this point. If you don't see the correlations and anything that's been talked about, don't worry. Next time. So basically what happens is a story goes something like this. There is a battle, right, between the gods and the demons. The gods and the demons are having a battle. You know, that age-old story. Fight between good and bad, right and wrong, the villain and the hero, mind and intellect. It's the same thing. Almost every movie, every story, everything ever, you always got this good and bad element. Anyway, this fight going on, good and bad. Now, the problem in this fight, in this battle, is that the evil forces were winning, dominating. So the good forces, the good folk, they requested the assistance of Brahman. The gods reached out to Brahman and said, hey, listen, Brahman, we are losing this battle here. Please, can you help us? Brahman says, sure. And Brahman assisted them. And what happened was that they overcame the evil forces and they won the battle. This is where we find ourselves now in the story, in the mantra, the first mantra. The gods all sitting around, all having a party, enjoying their victory, claiming victory as their own. Look at us, look at all of us. Hey? Did you see what we did to those demons? Destroyed them. What power we have. We are gods, of course. We are great. We won the battle. And Brahman recognized this. He saw their vanity, their frailty, and he wanted to teach them a lesson. No, he just wanted to expose their frailty, expose their vanity in a way. So they're all sitting there enjoying the victory party. And what happens? A yaksha appears in the sky. A yaksha is an apparition. And the gods all looked at each other and they were like, what is that? What is that? I thought we had destroyed all the last of the demons. What's that there? And none of them could work it out. Like a UFO. What is that? There must be some evil still lurking. If we don't know what's there and it's coming and it's there, hovering there, we best go and find out what that is. So what did they do? They said to Agni. Agni means the fire god. Said to Agni, Agni, go and find out what that thing is. Right. Agni said, sure, no problem. What fire god? Anything there? Finish it off. So Agni went up there and he approached the yaksha, the apparition. And the apparition saw him coming and said, who are you? What do you mean, who am I? I am fire god, Agni. He said, right, what is your portfolio? What do you do? Fire god, come on, what? Fire god, I can burn everything. Everything means everything. I can burn everything and anything. The apparition said, very good. And he got one piece of dried grass. Dried grass. You know, anyone who ever made a fire, dried grass is the easiest thing to burn. It's like paper. Probably they didn't have paper back in that time. So dried grass was there. The apparition said, burn this. Now imagine a controller of all the fire in the world is asked to burn a piece of grass. How much effort is he going to release to burn that? So, come on, what is this? So he let out a few calories. The grass was intact, sitting there intact. He let out a few more. Nothing happened. Full force. Fire God. Imagine all the fire in the world to burn a piece of grass, dried grass. I can stand if it's wet, but dried grass. He let everything out. Grass is sitting there. He gave up. I don't know what that thing is. He turned his tail back to the party. He went back to them and he said, listen here, I don't know what that thing is, but I was not able to ascertain what it was. I better send somebody else. So they sent Vayu. Now Vayu is a wind god. Vayu goes up and the same thing happened. The apparition says, yes, who are you now? Other fellow, useless fellow, who are you? I'm a wind god. I blow everything in this universe. Planets, everything. I blow it. Really? Okay. See this dried piece of grass here. Can you blow that? The same thing he thought. What challenge is it? Nothing. More and more and more he blew. Nothing happened. Eventually he let out everything. Still the grass was sitting there. 180 degrees. Marched back. He said to them, listen, I don't know. I don't know what I can't figure that out, what that apparition is. Indra, it's up to you. Now, Indra, if any of you know Indian mythology, Indra is the ruler of the gods. He's like the chief of the gods. When there's a big problem, they call Indra. So Indra went up there. And as Indra was approaching the apparition disappeared. The apparition disappeared. So instead of Agni and Vayu, the fire god and the wind god, Indra didn't give up. He didn't turn around and come back and say, I don't know, that thing disappeared as soon as I came near it. He pursued it. He pursued it. It disappeared. And in its place stood Uma. Not Uma Thurman. Uma, the daughter of the Himalaya. Beautiful Uma. Standing there. Uma represents the daughter of the Himalayas. Himalayas is always associated with knowledge. And we always say Vedanta comes from the valleys of the Himalayas. So Uma represents the knowledge. And Indra asks Uma, did you see that apparition? Where did it go? What is it? And funny enough, that's where the third part ends. It ends with Indra's question to Uma. The answer is given in part 4. I say, that doesn't make sense. Why don't you just answer it like sequel here, you know? like Netflix. That's what keeps you going with the next episode, and then you realize, oh my goodness, 11 o'clock, I gotta wake up tomorrow morning, and that fellow told me to get up at 5. Better pack myself off. 3 episodes of Netflix is more than enough. Where's my self-control? I'm only joking. Watch as many as you like. I don't check up on any one of you. Anyway, so that is the narrative. That is the story. Basic broad strokes of the story. Don't worry, we'll get into every mantra. It's the same thing, but we'll dig into every mantra and we will slowly unearth the story. We'll bring light to the representation of the story in the context of the Upanishads. Like the next episode of Netflix, unfortunately, you'll have to wait for next week. I see. I don't know. 23 people. Definitely will be 23 people next week. Oh, who wants to miss out on the crux of the story, no? Okay. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week. And we shall see you next Wednesday.